Are you a project manager trying to overcome inconsistent or weak sponsorship to deliver your project? If so, this week's episode is for you. Welcome to Better Projects Today, the bite-sized project management podcast helping you to bridge theory and practice in your own work to create better teams, better results, and better projects today. My name's Tyler Norman, and I bring 15 years of experience as a global program leader and mentor. I'd like to thank my friend Sydney for today's topic. If you have a topic or question you'd like to see in a future episode, give me a shout on LinkedIn or drop it in a comment below. Strong sponsorship is an absolute key to projects and provide the rudder that keeps a project on course. But experienced project managers know that ideal conditions with a strong sponsor are often the exception, not the rule. Whether you're forced to launch a project without a named sponsor, you have a sponsor that leaves or is disengaged, or your project gets bounced from executive to executive like a corporate hot potato, you're still on the hook for delivering the project as the PM. First things first, do everything you can to get a formal sponsor placed if you don't have one. This is a real key, and this is something that I've run into a lot over my project management career, is that you'll be asked to start a project without a sponsor, and you'll have an executive that says, just get started. You know, it's a good idea. Folks will come along with it. And as I've gotten more experienced, I've gotten much more comfortable pushing back and saying, I'm not willing to start this project without a sponsor placed. Some ways you can do this are lay out to the authority that's providing funding or resources the value of sponsorship, help them understand why it's so important, explain to whatever that person is that you're going to have significant friction and challenges in getting the project done without a sponsor. Some examples of this are a big part of a sponsor's role is getting up in front of potential stakeholders and saying, this is important to me, I support it, I'd like it to move forward. Without a sponsor, you're going to have to sell the value of the work to each and every group and person you engage, and some are going to see the value more than others. It's going to be hard to get folks to prioritize the work and move it forward. With that, if you don't have a sponsor and you're being forced to move forward with a project, I would flag that lack of sponsorship as a risk that has to be built into the project plan. In the past, when I've gone down this road, I've demonstrated an increase on scheduling costs to the tune of 20 to 25%. And when pushed on that, I say, every time we get to a question or something that has to be escalated, it's going to take this much more time to move things forward without a sponsor. So first bit of advice, do everything you can to get a formal sponsor placed. If that doesn't happen, let's go on to the next tip. If you've got to move forward without one, map the organization's true power grid early on and attempt to use that to formalize sponsorship. So even without an official sponsor over the top, someone or a group of someone's in your org still hold the purse strings and the political clout that's going to help you move through your project. Some tips for this are conduct a stakeholder analysis and look at influence more than just resources in the org chart. RACI and power interest grids can be powerful. You can also look for folks that are kind of the subject matter experts hidden in the org that have real power. Look for those informal influencers such as finance controllers, chiefs of staff, respected subject matter experts who can act as sort of a proxy sponsor by unblocking decisions day over day, and then document and socialize those findings so that the broader team sees who to approach when escalation is needed. And perhaps, it might be different subjects you have to approach in a different way, but this transparency will help reduce churn and help you avoid duplicative efforts. Third tip, formalize accountability through a sponsorship charter. Even if you don't have a single formal sponsor, lock in the role even if you can't lock in the person. So draft a simple charter. This can be a one-pager, but have things like what are the sponsor responsibilities, things like approve scope changes, champion resources, remove blockers, and then go to your current leadership, whether it's your PMO leadership, maybe it's functional leaders who are affiliated with the project, and get them on board with your charter for what you need from sponsors. With that, you can work through discussions on who's going to inherit different tasks, different things you're looking for them to do, and avoid having to renegotiate that every time a question comes up. Another key there is rebaseline anytime your sponsorship changes. A quick handoff briefing can save you rework when details change in that sponsorship charter. Fourth tip, develop a drumbeat when it comes to your business case and the value that the project is bringing. Sponsors often disengage when the project's value begins to fade from view, when they start to forget why the work is important. So keep that business value front and center. So some ways you can do that are every time you come in front of executive steering committee, whatever you have, refresh the headline on why you're doing this. Maybe it's you remind them, here's the vision, here's the reason we're doing this for the business. Maybe it's cost benefit. I've worked on projects before where folks were starting to push back and wonder why we were doing it, and you could say things like, we're going to spend $100,000, we're going to get $400,000 in annual savings, and you repeat that over and over again so that the people involved don't forget why this is important. Another key with that drumbeat of business value is try to translate technical milestones into business language. Execs will often, if you get too thick in the weeds, the eyes will start to glaze over. So one way that you can help ensure that sponsors remain engaged and you avoid that rotating door is to make sure that you're speaking in a way that they understand. And then another good idea on this is schedule at least quarterly value checkpoints where finance validates the benefits to date. That independent confirmation will help boost the legitimacy, even if your sponsor's coming and going. Fifth tip, leverage coalition communication patterns. What I mean by that is when no single sponsor owns the initiative, consensus is what you're looking for, but you're also trying to avoid bureaucracy. And that's kind of a tough line to walk of how do I get consensus without making it overly bureaucratic. So some tips to make that happen are use short and high cadence status updates. So this can be a quick weekly email, a 2-minute video, a post to MS Teams or Slack that provide updates without dragging people into long meetings that they're going to tune out of. Another tip here is approach decision making with a hub and spoke approach. So you can gather inputs asynchronously through MS Teams, through Slack, through whatever it is. Publish a proposed decision and then give a 48-hour speak now or we're moving forward window. With that kind of approach, you can avoid getting in a meeting and spinning in circles and moving nowhere. Another key here is celebrate wins broadly and publicly so that your sponsors, even sponsors that are on now or those that may come in the future, associate the project with positive outcomes and increase their willingness to back it. Last tip here, and this is a big one, is create a risk buffer for sponsor transitions. I started off by talking about if you're asked to move forward in a project without a sponsor, demonstrate what that's going to mean for cost and scope. For cost and schedule. If you're forced to move forward anyway, use that risk buffer in a way that you control the impact of the project as much as possible as the sponsor changes. So when you change sponsorship, it's really common that you'll have scope creep, the timeline will move, funding will go under review or change. Add a sponsor volatility line item to your risk register and associate contingency reserve there. And treat it like something that is inevitable, but you're managing it. Another tip is design modular deliverables so that partially completed components can deliver standalone value if you have to pause the project or reprioritize. If you know that sponsors are going to be coming and going and there's risk of the project being stopped or being forced to pivot, it can be a good practice to plan your work in a way that you have value delivered along the way so that if you're forced to hit the brakes or redirect your efforts, you still have value from the project. Additionally, if you know sponsors may be coming and going, use more of a rolling roadmap as opposed to the big, long, monolithic Gantt chart. That way, new sponsors can quickly see near-term impact, and then it also allows you to negotiate when that time comes that a new sponsor comes on and says, I want to do something a little different. You can often say, well, we're in it's almost an extended sprint of sorts. We've got this rolling wave. How about we stay on track for the next couple months, and then we plan further down the road with your inputs. In conclusion, projects rarely enjoy perfect executive sponsorship from kickoff to closeout. But if you go about things in the right way by mapping influence, getting the duties on paper, keeping the value of the project alive, and more of these tips, you'll find that you can transform that turbulence from your sponsor into a solvable project risk like any other. At the end of the day, as a PM, your mandate is to deliver outcomes and not manage sponsors, not deliver titles on an org chart. So control what you can, build in buffers for what you can't, and at the end of the day, keep it moving forward. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic or a question that you'd like to see addressed in a future episode of Better Projects Today, drop it below.